Salmon farming is a billion-dollar business, and sales figures continue to rise. Norway and Chile are the biggest players. We visit one of the biggest salmon farms in the world, which has invested in new technology, and a whistleblower from Chile reports on the industry's dark side.
Toda su línea de proceso era una estafa.
Find out why on Transforming Business. In recent decades, one scandal after another, mass salmon die-offs, deadly infectious diseases. The fish are treated with antibiotics and chemicals to fight parasites and disease. Is it still the same narrative? We take a look at Norway, the world's largest salmon producer. The profits of fish farms there have risen massively since 2015 to over 3.5 billion euros in 2022. It may look like a ship, but the company says it's the world's biggest fish farm. It's run by Nordlaks, a huge aquaculture farm in northern Norway. The nets reach 56 meters deep into the sea. Around 2.5 million salmon swim around in them. The farm has been designed so that fewer fish get sick or die, according to the sales and marketing director.
Normally we run at mortality rates, I would say around 5%, 4 to 6 over the last 5 years.
The fact that mortality rates are so low at the farm is due in part to this laser gun, but more on that later. The average mortality rate throughout Norway is significantly higher at 17%. One problem with aquaculture, parasites, such as the salmon louse, which repeatedly attack the fish. It's a crustacean that can kill the salmon. That's why Nordlaks gives the infested farmed salmon freshwater baths. And they also use chemical baths to remove the salmon lice. But this can make the animals sick.
One of the main reasons is handling due to treatment against salmon lice. To remove salmon lice now entails a lot of treatment, and that treatment is stressful for the fish, and then they can, for instance, develop wounds afterwards.
This is Erik Biering. His institute checks the health of the fish. There's another problem. Farmed salmon keep escaping from the nets and transmitting the salmon louse to wild salmon. When farmed and wild salmon mate, their offspring displace the wild salmon stocks. This is another reason why the wild Atlantic salmon is among the world's endangered species. This farm uses a laser beam to remove salmon lice. It's supposed to cut the infection rate and stop the fish from becoming too weak. The farm is also located in the open sea, not in a fjord. The moving fresh water is supposed to reduce the disease infestation. Sediment and excrement are washed away more easily by the ocean currents. But this is only standard practice on this farm. Nordlaks says that it also operates 40 conventional farms in fjords. Like the entire industry, the company is under pressure. It has to invest in environmentally friendly facilities, and it can afford to do so. Global farmed salmon revenue grew from over 13 billion euros in 2017 to more than 20 billion in 2022. There's good money to be made from salmon. Inga Back, Nordlaks' owner, has made a fortune worth hundreds of millions of euros. It's a similar story for billionaires Gustav Witzøe and his son Gustav Magnar of the Salmon company. Aquaculture is growing more and more compared with fishing, although globally most fish are still caught. But that is changing. Aquaculture production surpassed fishing in 2023 with 97 million tons. But fish farming is controversial. When it comes to salmon, many ask whether the species is suited to aquaculture. The reason? It's a predatory fish that needs both a certain amount of fish in its feed as well as soy.
Right now, you need to feed more than 1 kilogram of wild fish to get 1 kilogram of salmon, and this cannot be sustainable.
After Norway, Chile is a leading producer of farmed salmon, followed by Britain, Canada, and the Faroe Islands, which belong to Denmark. In Chile, salmon companies and investors from Norway, such as Cermaq, Movi, and Salmon, have expanded into the country. Even conglomerate Mitsubishi operates there. In a key salmon farming region in Chile, we meet whistleblower Mario Argel Uribe. He worked in an aquaculture facility owned by Nova Austral until 2021 and publicized the salmon farm's breach of environmental regulations.
Como se vio muy afectado el sector, con fecas de salmón, con alimentos de salmón, y quedó un lugar contaminado, ellos no podían sembrar ahí, pero lo que ingeniosamente se les ocurrió fue taparlo.
The Chilean Environmental Supervisory Authority, SMA, imposed a heavy fine on Nova, and they had to close some farms.
Estaban cometiendo actos ilícitos, desde que sembraban hasta que cosechaban. Toda su línea de proceso era una estafa. Entonces dentro de eso están los trabajadores, porque lo único que hacen es destruir los lugares donde llegan, destruir la biodiversidad. Por eso nunca va a ser sustentable, ni sostenible en el tiempo.
But another problem affects Chile's entire salmon farming industry. Antibiotics are used on a massive scale to fight infectious disease. Critics, like veterinarian Lisbeth van der Meer, says this endangers both humans and animals.
Hoy día la salmonicultura experimenta una resistencia masiva ante este antibiótico. Ya no tenemos otro antibiótico para combatir esta enfermedad que hoy día está en todas las poblaciones de peces en Chile.
More antibiotics are used in Chile's fish farms than anywhere else in the world. 339 tons in 2023. There is less systematic monitoring and fewer sanctions than in Europe. These conditions have made it easy for salmon farmers from Norway to expand into Chile. But what might better monitoring of salmon farms look like? For example, Norway has been developing an interactive monitoring system for about 10 years. It receives data every week. The hundreds of salmon farms in the country are obliged to enter comprehensive data on various fish diseases. And there's a traffic light system. Red production zones means salmon lice infestation or that infections per fish are too high.
The traffic light system is such that it defines whether you're allowed to increase your production or not. And this is based on the way that the different companies, farmers, control sea lice.
This is virologist Eystein Evensen. He researches salmon diseases.
So there is a fairly strict reporting of any disease, treatment, diagnosis of notifiable diseases, and so on.
But how reliable is this system, which is based on self-reporting? Authorities conduct random checks, which can lead to sanctions, fines, or prison sentences.
Occasionally, we might go out and see, we count together, we make them count first, and then we count, and we compare the numbers.
That's Lisa Charlotta Rolkones. Her team monitors fish health in Norway.
Mostly, it is correct. And we have some that is not correct, and it depends on the severity of the wrongdoing here.
Chile's Economic Affairs Ministry also wants to improve the monitoring system for the country's hundreds of breeding facilities. One such measure is that the farms must report on the amount of antibiotics or other chemicals they use. But how does the monitoring work?
It's of course difficult to, let's say, know in detail. But the numbers from Chile has been more and more precise over the last years, and they've been more and more detailed.
But what does this mean for consumers? How can they find out which fish they are buying in the supermarket? There are many different quality labels. They all define global standards for the farming of fish. Companies that want to gain certification from the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, or ASC, must comply with specific upper limits for infectious disease or fish mortality.
So we call it impose certain standards, and that is always positive and always needed. But it should also be a motivation for the farmer to produce under good, let's say, both welfare conditions and health conditions, and document at a detailed level what you're actually doing.
The ASC label is one of the world's largest. Most licensed fish farms must pay fees to be part of it. The organization has the farms inspected. The ASC says that several hundred fish farms are licensed in Norway alone.
If they're not able to do this, the label or the certification gets withdrawn or even cancelled. So in the end, they drop out of the program.
This is Tobias Haug. He represents ASC in German-speaking countries.
We can see that actually. For example, in Norway in 2023 alone, 52 salmon farms had to withdraw from our program because they couldn't meet the requirements.
But let's take another look at a completely new trend: closed aquaculture. In Norway, we meet a farm manager with a pioneering spirit. The company he works for says over 1 million salmon swim in its 30 breeding tanks. They do not use nets. The tank's outer walls are made of plastic.
We're trying to find a new way of doing salmon farming, and our goal is to reach the utopia of having the world's most sustainable salmon farming.
The benefit? The salmon louse cannot penetrate the tank's plastic outer layer, and the farm salmon cannot escape. A filter collects the fish excrement, which is then pumped to the surface. It is then dried and used for biogas plants or as fertilizer.
We're the only salmon farmer that I know that don't have sea lice, and when the fish gets to just thrive inside of a good environment, we have very good growth.
Environmental problems and the health of salmon are the biggest challenges facing the industry. More and more salmon are being produced as a result of aquaculture, but uniform international standards and controls must be introduced to guarantee sustainable management in the sector and a reliable quality product.